Muy buenos días a todos los participantes que nos acompañan el día de hoy. Les agradecemos por estar aquí, conectados con nosotros en el evento Crédito Emprendedor, un hecho. Un espacio que hoy celebra el cierre de un proyecto de más de 2 años, que ha buscado fortalecer instrumentos para brindar acceso a crédito a empresas en etapa temprana. En breves momentos daremos inicio a nuestro evento. De nuevo, bienvenidos.
Bancoldex es el Banco de Desarrollo Empresarial de Colombia. ¿Cómo lo logra? Basados en 4 pilares. Primero, apoyamos la productividad de los micro, pequeños y medianos empresarios. Segundo, fomentamos las exportaciones. Tercero, promovemos proyectos de sostenibilidad ambiental. Y cuarto, promovemos proyectos de economía naranja o economía creativa. Y como el desarrollo empresarial requiere, además de financiación, otros aspectos, Bancoldex genera espacios de formación y capacitación para sus empresarios.
Bienvenidos a Crédito Emprendedor, un hecho. Un evento en el que el Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo BID y Bancoldex quieren compartir con ustedes los aprendizajes y resultados en el desarrollo de programas de crédito para emprendedores. En el piloto realizado, participaron algunas entidades financieras y algunas entidades de apoyo al emprendimiento de Colombia. También conoceremos un caso internacional en el que el otorgamiento de crédito y los servicios de mentoría van de la mano. El evento está dividido en 2 jornadas. La primera de ellas se lleva a cabo el día de hoy, en donde conoceremos a Richard Birman, de Startup Launch Company, quien nos contará su experiencia trabajando con emprendedores. La segunda jornada se llevará a cabo el día de mañana, de 8:30 a 11 a.m., en donde tendremos espacios de conversación entre algunos de los participantes del proyecto. Los invitamos a visitar la pestaña de agenda en la aplicación. Allí podrán ampliar los detalles y horarios de cada sesión. Como el día de hoy vamos a tener una conferencia en inglés, en la plataforma encontrarán 2 pestañas habilitadas: conferencia en español y conferencia en inglés. Aquellas personas que deseen escuchar la conferencia con traducción simultánea se pueden quedar en la pestaña de conferencia en español. Quienes deseen escuchar la conferencia en inglés, los invitamos a ingresar a la pestaña conferencia en inglés. También queremos invitarlos a que se unan a la conversación en nuestras redes sociales. Nos encuentran como @Bancoldex en Twitter, Facebook e Instagram, usando el numeral Crédito Emprendedor, un hecho. Ahora saludemos a 2 de nuestros invitados: María José Naranjo, vicepresidenta de Estrategia Corporativa de Bancoldex, y a Fernando Vargas, especialista en competitividad, tecnología e innovación del BID. Para dar inicio a esta jornada, invitamos a Fernando Vargas del BID para realizar la apertura del evento Crédito Emprendedor, un hecho. Bienvenido, Fernando.
Muchas gracias, Efren, por la presentación. Voy a ver si es que pueden ver en este momento el archivo que estoy tratando de compartir. Bueno, ustedes me contarán. Bueno, básicamente nosotros como banco hemos venido trabajando, como decía Efren, con Bancoldex por un par de años ya en este programa en el cual tratamos de favorecer las condiciones con las cuales hacer y promover el emprendimiento innovador, sobre todo en el país. Eso en base a una visión que hemos venido desarrollando en el banco hace ya unas cuantas décadas. Ustedes saben, llevamos 6 décadas como banco y unas cuantas dedicadas al fomento a la innovación y al emprendimiento. Nosotros hemos venido trabajando desde la época en que se consideraba que el emprendimiento innovador y la innovación era una cuestión que era una causa casi natural después de invertir en la ciencia, ¿no? Como se hacía en los años 40, en los años 50, en lo cual había una gran inversión en capacidades científicas de los países y eventualmente en algún momento se desarrollarían nuevas ideas de negocio a partir del conocimiento científico que se iba desarrollando. Luego de eso, nosotros, bueno, digamos la comunidad académica que estudiaba estos temas y nosotros como banco también fuimos actualizando nuestra visión hasta encontrar, diría que en los años 80, la comprensión de que efectivamente lo que estaba pasando a nivel de innovación y emprendimiento en los mercados también tenía que ver mucho con un proceso que iteraba entre la creación de conocimiento científico y el desarrollo de aplicaciones en los mercados. Eso se llamó un modelo encadenado de la forma de entender la innovación y básicamente nos generaba como recomendación que no solamente había que promover la creación de conocimiento científico en nuestros países, sino que además había que intervenir en condiciones que facilitaran la transformación de ese conocimiento científico en tecnologías que pudieran ser usadas, pero al mismo tiempo que los científicos y la comunidad académica se pudiera alimentar de nuevas soluciones que estaban apareciendo en los mercados y que no tenían necesariamente que ver con desarrollo científico. Ya entrado de los 90, vimos la idea de los sistemas de innovación, una idea que fue desarrollada principalmente, o al menos originalmente, en los países del norte de Europa, básicamente con la visión de que no era solamente la empresa y el emprendedor quienes tenían que ver con el desempeño de un sistema innovador, sino que eran múltiples instituciones que estaban asociadas a ellos y que determinan las condiciones a través de las cuales se puede generar crecimiento económico. Como les decía, ya no es solamente el emprendedor y la empresa, ya no es solamente la universidad y los académicos, sino que se involucran los diferentes tipos de industria que están en cada uno de los países, la regulación, la disponibilidad de infraestructura, el sistema político y sobre todo los temas de financiamiento que son los que hoy nos convocan. Para ya luego tener una visión un poquito más, no diría definitiva, pero sí contemporánea, que es la idea de los ecosistemas de innovación y emprendimiento, con este último tomando todos los actores de un ecosistema, pero poniéndolos alrededor de cómo afectan el desarrollo de nuevas empresas, sobre todo de base innovadora. Con esta evolución del pensamiento, con que, como les digo, nosotros como banco hemos ido acompañando un proceso que se ha ido generando a nivel de los estudios que se desarrollan en los temas de innovación y emprendimiento y así también el área de las políticas. Nosotros como banco buscamos promover la creación y el desarrollo de emprendimientos dinámicos a través del fortalecimiento de estos ecosistemas de emprendimiento en América Latina y el Caribe. ¿Qué vamos a entender por emprendimiento dinámico? Bueno, aquellos con, uno, alto potencial de crecimiento; dos, que tengan una capacidad de internacionalización; tres, que tengan una propuesta comercial que está basada en productos o servicios que sean considerados innovadores; y cuatro, que al mismo tiempo tengan altos niveles de incertidumbre técnica y comercial. Es decir, lo que estamos buscando no es replicar situaciones que ya son probadas, sino tratar de fomentar la aparición de aquellas empresas que están tomando riesgos bastante altos cuando son conocidos, o inclusive que están haciendo algo tan nuevo que lo vamos a clasificar como incertidumbre. Y son aquellos que nos van a entregar el impacto que requerimos en los países. ¿Cómo lo entendemos? Bueno, entendemos que entonces debemos actuar a nivel de condiciones de entorno y de lo que llamamos también de condiciones sistémicas. ¿A qué nos llamamos con condiciones de entorno? Bueno, son esas cosas que tienen regulaciones que tienen los países o condiciones que permiten la aparición o no de ciertas instituciones, de cierto conocimiento y de cierto tipo de empresas. Aquí estamos hablando de instituciones formales, tan sencillo como, o suena sencillo al menos, instituciones que tengan buena política pública, gobernanza, la cultura alrededor de la innovación y el emprendimiento, la infraestructura física que está disponible y el acceso a los potenciales mercados, tanto locales como internacionales. Pero al mismo tiempo tenemos que preocuparnos de aquellas condiciones que llamamos sistémicas, que es decir, cómo interactúan cada uno de estos aspectos dentro de cada una de las economías, que sean regionales o nacionales. Hablamos de la formación de redes, hablamos de la preponderancia de líderes en cada una de las industrias, hablamos de la disponibilidad de talento o capital humano, la disponibilidad de conocimiento, la oferta de servicios de apoyo a la innovación y al emprendimiento y, por supuesto, el acceso a financiamiento. Ahora, cuando hablamos de estas condiciones sistémicas, ¿dónde podemos intervenir como banco y desde la política pública? Bueno, en la formación de redes hay que tratar de fomentar o crear aquellos espacios en los cuales puedan interactuar de una manera mucho más fluida aquellas potenciales ideas o poseedores de aquellas ideas innovadoras, tanto con otros pares como con potenciales compradores, ya sean del sector público o del sector privado, y esto se hace normalmente a través de la creación de hubs o el fomento de hubs, de espacios de coworking, todas aquellas iniciativas que permitan aumentar la densidad de startups en cada una de las regiones del país. También necesitamos líderes. Es mucho más difícil que existan riesgos y emprendedores y emprendedoras cuando no haya casos de éxito a los cuales echar a mano. Por eso la existencia de un mercado libre en Argentina, de un corner shop en Chile, de un Rappi aquí en Colombia, de un Nubank en Brasil, nos permiten mostrar que es posible y por lo tanto favorecer que el resto de aquellas personas con capacidades y con ideas sean capaces de tomar camino emprendedor. Tenemos, por supuesto, la necesidad de contar con talento. No existe ninguna empresa que vaya a poder crecer si no tiene el talento necesario a disposición para contratar y desarrollar nuevas ideas. Aquí estamos hablando de que los países, y nosotros en general, creemos que hay que promover la formación, por una parte, lo que llamamos tradicional, de lo que eran las disciplinas STEM, de la ciencia, la tecnología, la ingeniería y las matemáticas, desde el mundo de la educación terciaria, pero también tomar aquellas nuevas formas de formación, valga la redundancia, que son un poquito más rápidas y aplicadas, como los bootcamps digitales o incluso los bootcamps de diseño, por ejemplo, que son capaces de poner a disposición del mercado y formar a personas de manera rápida en habilidades que van a poder ser utilizadas rápidamente en el desarrollo de nuevas ideas y nuevos negocios. Ahora, eso tiene que ir de la mano con la formación de talento en la gestión empresarial. Aquí hablamos de que no solamente una empresa joven, para poder ser exitosa, necesita una buena idea y una buena implementación y una tecnología que sea disruptiva, sino que al mismo tiempo tiene que ser capaz de tener una gerencia que le permita llevar adelante todas aquellas fases de crecimiento empresarial que nosotros consideramos necesarias. Y sabemos que en la región de América Latina esta es una asignatura aún pendiente. Nuestros países se encuentran muy por debajo del promedio a nivel mundial en lo que se refiere a prácticas, a mejores prácticas en la gestión. Necesitamos conocimiento, el deal flow que llama la gente que trabaja efectivamente en los temas de emprendimiento. Tú necesitas tener nuevas ideas poderosas, novedosas y factibles para poder transformarlas luego en emprendimientos de base tecnológica. Eso significa que no podemos pensar en construir una nación emprendedora si no estamos invirtiendo lo suficiente en la formación de capacidades científico-tecnológicas, ya sea el desarrollo de biotecnología, de nuevas ámbitos de estudio en la inteligencia artificial, por ejemplo, el desarrollo de las ciencias básicas, la investigación, la sonografía, la astronomía, por ejemplo, todas estas disciplinas que normalmente se consideran quizá un poquito alejadas de los mercados son principalmente aquellas que determinarán el flujo de nuevas ideas que puedan llegar a transformarse en emprendimiento en un futuro no tan lejano. Tenemos que preocuparnos de que las condiciones también empresariales permitan que se desarrollen de manera efectiva las nuevas ideas y los nuevos emprendimientos. Y aquí no solamente hablamos de la regulación, sino que tenemos que tener a disposición de cada una de estas empresas, por ejemplo, una comunidad suficiente de servicios legales para gestión de propiedad intelectual. Sabemos que nuevos negocios que están basados en tecnología requieren de cierta protección de derechos de propiedad intelectual que son más fáciles de solucionar cuando tenemos en nuestro mercado servicios de este tipo, los servicios de incubación, los servicios de aceleramiento, todo este tipo de apoyo empresarial que no necesariamente se puede dar por descontado que existen en los mercados, es necesario monitorearlos y proveerlos en las condiciones que sean suficientes para fomentar el emprendimiento innovador en nuestros países. Y finalmente, el tema que hemos venido trabajando durante este tiempo con Bancoldex. Necesitamos encontrar más y mejores fuentes de financiamiento para aquellos emprendimientos de base tecnológica o emprendimientos innovadores. Sabemos que en general la industria tradicional de prestación de créditos no atiende con la profundidad que se requiere a este tipo de empresas, ya sea porque son modelos de negocio distintos o porque lo que llamamos en la economía hay mucha asimetría de información entre quien tiene idea del potencial éxito de su proyecto versus quien le va a hacer el crédito en este caso, genera entonces un espacio de empresas que podrían acceder a financiamiento y podrían llegar a repagar los tiempos que corresponde, pero no tienen suficiente apoyo por el lado de la oferta y es por eso que en este proyecto que hemos desarrollado con Bancoldex tratamos de resolver ese problema a través de dos brazos, si se quiere. Por una parte, tratamos de que instituciones financieras del segmento más tradicional desarrollaran instrumentos y herramientas que permitieran atender a este grupo de empresas jóvenes de rápido crecimiento, pero al mismo tiempo tratamos de trabajar con aquellas instituciones que sí están acostumbradas a trabajar con empresas jóvenes de rápido crecimiento, pero que no tienen experiencia en el sector financiero, y ver si es que ellos son capaces también de cerrar esa brecha. Con este tipo de proyectos, nosotros reforzamos nuestro compromiso con el fomento a los ecosistemas de innovación y emprendimiento. Creemos que son mecanismos que se tienen que seguir construyendo. Esto es un paso adelante, pero aún nos queda mucho camino por recorrer. Sabemos que de todas maneras mejorar el mercado del acceso a financiamiento y el crédito es un paso en la dirección correcta para fomentar el emprendimiento de base innovadora en Colombia. Gracias, Brenda.
Fernando, mil gracias por tus palabras de bienvenida. Ahora invitamos a María José Naranjo, vicepresidente de Estrategia Corporativa de Bancoldex, a brindar unas palabras.
Listo, buenos días a todos. ¿Me oyen bien? Efren, ¿me confirmas, porfa?
Sí, María José, te escuchamos bien.
Perfecto, buenos días a todos. Para nosotros es un placer estar acá con todos ustedes. Quiero en especial darle un agradecimiento muy fuerte al BID, con quienes hemos ya, como lo mencionaba Fernando, tenido una relación de varios años para este proyecto. Y déjenme un poquito explicarles por qué la importancia para Bancoldex. Si bien Fernando ya profundizó acerca de la importancia de tener herramientas para emprendedores en etapa temprana. Entonces, pues desde nuestro lado, Bancoldex como Banco de Desarrollo ha decidido en ese momento emprender este camino con el BID para que precisamente un actor importantísimo del ecosistema de crecimiento económico para el país tuviera herramientas financieras. Nosotros llevamos muchos años trabajando con el sistema financiero y sabemos que hay barreras, que los emprendedores no se entienden, no son comprendidos por las limitaciones que tienen muchas veces en términos de información o de modus operandi. Y por eso es que Bancoldex decidió con este proyecto acercarse al sistema financiero para que precisamente los emprendedores tuvieran unas herramientas innovadoras y más pertinentes para poder crecer. Entonces, con esto, pues claramente quiero darle las gracias a Fernando y a María Paola, que fueron absolutamente cercanos a Bancoldex para que lográramos un buen resultado con este proyecto que se enfocó básicamente en dos momentos importantes. El primero es que mediante unas duplas de una entidad financiera y una entidad que conocía muy bien el emprendimiento en etapa temprana, se juntaran y tuvieran la transmisión de un know-how y de unas mejores prácticas para que precisamente las entidades financieras tuvieran unos sistemas de riesgo para entender mejor a los empresarios, donde incluyeran nuevas variables y donde digamos que ese mundo del emprendimiento fuera mejor comprendido. Y para eso trabajamos con 3 duplas que fueron la Fundación Santo Domingo y la Universidad del Norte, Actuar para mi Empresas y la Fundación Exim, y Finanfuturo y Manizales Más. Entonces, estas 3 duplas no solo nos acompañaron durante un proceso muy valioso para ellas y para nosotros, porque yo quiero también contar que ambas partes aprendimos un montón, pero aquí me es muy gratificante contar que finalmente, después de todo este acompañamiento, 35 empresas pudieron recibir más de 1.800 millones de pesos de financiación, porque es el compromiso, poder materializar este trabajo con ellos en unos desembolsos que en efecto le ayudaran a las empresas en etapa temprana, a los emprendedores que usualmente tienen unas restricciones y un acceso complejo al acceso al sistema financiero, poder recibir financiación. Esa era como la primera parte del programa, y la segunda se enfocó en un acompañamiento más de capacitación y de diagnóstico para que las empresas y las entidades de acompañamiento al crecimiento empresarial tuvieran también la posibilidad de montar unos programas para emprendimiento en etapa temprana con factores innovadores, entendiendo muy bien qué es lo que un emprendedor necesita en términos de financiación, de plazo, de tasa, de condiciones, de periodos de gracia y de todo lo que está alrededor de la financiación. Tuvimos un interés de 40 empresas en este segundo momento. Pudimos acompañar a 27 y luego de esas 27, 10 tuvieron acceso a un diagnóstico para poder acompañarles y determinar cómo era la mejor forma de montar un programa de acompañamiento y financiación de estas empresas en etapa temprana. Así que hoy nos acompaña, tenemos el placer de tener con nosotros a muchas de las entidades que hicieron parte de este gran proyecto con el BID. Para nosotros es, como les decía, un momento de aprendizaje interno, pero también de haber podido compartir y de haber podido entregar conocimiento. Entonces hoy vamos a poder escuchar aprendizajes, vamos a poder escuchar los retos que se vienen de adelante para estas entidades que son absolutamente importantes para fortalecer el ecosistema empresarial del país. Y finalmente quiero darle la bienvenida a Richard Bierman de Startup Loans Company, que es un programa del British Business Bank. Richard tiene más de 20 años de experiencia en el acompañamiento y el entendimiento de estos empresarios tan particulares y tan innovadores que añaden tanto valor al crecimiento económico. Para nosotros entonces es un placer tener acá a Richard. Bienvenidos a todos ustedes para escuchar lo que nos va a contar de la experiencia que ha tenido en el Reino Unido y finalmente reconfirmar con ustedes que tienen disponible un canal para quienes quieren escuchar la conferencia de Richard en español y en inglés. Así que los dejo acá con estas palabras de bienvenida. Nuevamente muchas gracias al BID, Fernando, María Paola, mil gracias por este acompañamiento que nos dieron durante todos estos meses de trabajo y esperamos que todos ustedes aprovechen esto que les vamos a contar y los retos que tenemos para el futuro. Mil gracias.
Hello, can someone confirm if you can hear me? Okay, great. It looks like I've had a response back there that you can. So thank you very much. So is that a little bit better if I speak a bit louder? Is that better? Okay, I'll speak as loud. If you need me to, I'll take the headphones off and just shout into the microphone. So hopefully the translating is going to work okay. But if it's not, if I'm going too fast, please let me know through the messaging or through another process. So my name is Richard Bearman, as I've already been introduced, and I'm a Managing Director at the British Business Bank, and I look after microfinance. So startup loans is my main product.
Is that any better? Does that work better? I should have messaged. Okay, I'll do it this way. Okay.
So my name is Richard Bearman. I'm a managing director of the British Business Bank, and my role is to look after microfinance projects, and particularly at the moment, the startup loans. Although currently, because of the COVID crisis, I'm also responsible for some of the UK government's response lending products for that crisis. So I'm also responsible for what's called the bounce back loans, which is a product I'll also make a few comments about. So I've worked in banking for over 20 years. For the first period of my career, I worked for HSBC in the UK, where I ended up as UK Director for Small Business, looking after the 850,000 small business customers that HSBC had in the UK. But I moved to the British Business Bank last year, where I took on this role. And I thought perhaps a few comments about why I moved, and perhaps some of my kind of ethos to business and small business might perhaps help. And it definitely would put into context perhaps the rest of the presentation, and give some insight to my thoughts about the startup loans and the products that we provide. So over 20 years of working with businesses, and particularly small and medium-sized businesses, I've sort of come to the belief, and it's a personal belief, that the key for businesses' success is the mindset of the entrepreneurs. And particularly, it's noticeable to me that the most successful small business entrepreneurs are sorry, I've just been told to share the screen. I think what I might do, just give me 1 second. Sorry. I'm going. Okay, just so I can see. I can't see the messaging. That's the only problem at the moment. If I'm just going to share my screen, so just give me 1 second. So I'm going to trust that this is working. So the most successful entrepreneurs are what I would call have a thought process where they are growing small, big businesses. And I'll say a few words about what I mean about that, but also that the most successful big businesses are running big, small businesses. And again, I'll say a few words about that. And I think for many of you who are in the industry, it will probably make sense. But my thought process is about growing small, big businesses is that what I've tended to see from meeting many small and medium-sized businesses is the mindset of the entrepreneur is that although they're running a small business, they are thinking like a big business. They are planning, they are working, they are operating as if they're running a big business. A few examples that I would give is I met recently a graduate, left university in IT graduate, who developed a product that was effectively a artificial intelligence product that would help suppliers operate within sales platforms such as Amazon. A very clever, very well-designed product, but he was one individual who developed this product and was absolutely the definition of a small business. But when I sat and spoke to that person, their thought process and their ambition and their planning and the way they were thinking through the opportunity that they had was without doubt the way a big business would think. They weren't talking about next week, next month. They were talking about next year and beyond. He wasn't talking about small opportunities. He was talking about big opportunities, and it developed a business plan to match that ambition. And when you go out and spend time with people like that, you end up with the belief and that understanding that they absolutely will be successful. And although his primary sort of client almost, or the way that he was helping most of his clients work with, was Amazon, he had that sort of ambition that he wanted to take Amazon on. Now, that is hugely ambitious, clearly, but it was a mindset. And I walked away from that meeting firmly in the belief that that individual will be successful. Similarly, I met a lady recently who started a gin company. So very British, a gin and tonic company. So making gin. She was on her third career. But although it was a very, very small business making a few hundred bottles of gin, her marketing plan, her sales plan, her customer plan was exceptional. It had been built out, it had been thought through. It was of the quality that you would expect from a big sort of national distributor. And again, you spend time with people like that and you realize, although it's a small business, they're thinking like a big business. They're thinking about how to do things professionally and properly and to give themselves the best chance of success. And just a few words, I do actually also think that the best big businesses have a degree of small business thought. And what they do is they retain the innovation, the creativity, the dynamic nature of small business, and they try and instill their big business with that energy of entrepreneurs. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. So the idea of helping people grow small, big businesses is, I think, at the heart of startup loans and at the heart of what we're trying to achieve at the British Business Bank through startup loans. And I say that because quite often when we talk about startup loans, we end up discussing and thinking about the lending, the funding, the actual loan itself. But I'm convinced that the most important element of startup loans is actually the support we give the entrepreneurs, the help, the guidance we give them as part of the journey to get the funding, but also to ensure that they're supported after they've received the funding, to help them have the best opportunity to be successful, and to perhaps get them thinking like a big business rather than just thinking like a small business. So what is startup loans? So, and I'm just going to dive out and sorry, I'm slightly worried, just going to check that this is working because I can't see the comment box. Can you confirm the slides been visible? Okay, thank you very much. I'll go back to the slides. So startup loans is a product that's provided by the British Business Bank. The British Business Bank is the UK government's economic development bank. It's been running for nearly 6 years, and the role of the British Business Bank is to provide support to small and medium-sized enterprises in the UK, particularly where the mainstream industry, the banking industry, either is not working fully functionally or there are gaps. So effectively filling the gaps that are in the banking industry and to provide support. The British Business Bank, most of its activities would be on the supply side. So working with partners, providing supply to those partners to then put funding into the economy, supporting a range of partners across the UK. But what Startup Loan does is, although it's providing supply, it's also involved in the demand side of the industry. So we do direct the market, promote, provide collateral, material, and effectively provide funding direct to the consumer. Although in most cases, we still work with partners across the UK. And I'll explain that in a moment. What we do is we provide unsecured, so there's no personal guarantee, there's no security taken, personal loans that are used for business purposes. Those loans are from £500 to £25,000,
And they're very much that sort of micro, small end to get businesses up and running, or to give a bit of funding to a business that's already operational to help them grow to the next level. So these loans are for businesses that are starting up, so those that have just started their life, or up to 2 years old. So the businesses we support can have been trading for up to 2 years. The interest rate is fixed at 6%. There are no fees, and the customer can take that loan and repay it over 1 to 5 years. So it's repaid back over 1 to 5 years. So it's a very simple product, very little variables, very little flexibility really around the product. It's simple and hopefully easy to understand. We do offer repayment holidays, capital repayment holidays at the start. So the entrepreneur can defer the first payments for up to 12 months. But essentially, it's a fixed and standard product. As I mentioned earlier, though, I think the key to this product is the pre and post loan support. The UK market, the high street banks, the main banks find it very difficult to fund startups or early stage businesses. And that's the gap that we're filling. But I think as much as the gap is one of the actual funding, it's the fact that many entrepreneurs struggle to get themselves into a position where they are credit ready. They struggle to explain their business. They struggle to provide cash flow forecasts, business plans. They struggle to get to a point quickly that the mainstream banks can fund them. And I think that's the key element to what we provide, is that pre-loan support. We help the entrepreneur understand what they're trying to achieve, help the entrepreneur build their business plan, and help the entrepreneur ultimately get themselves ready to get funding. And I think that is part of the description of not just giving them money, but helping them grow a big business. We also offer every loan applicant a mentoring, so post-loan support for up to 12 months. So they continue to get support from us and from our partners for 12 months after the loan is provided. I thought I would just explain the journey, explain how it actually operates and how it works. So we, as I say, we market, we have our website, we have numerous sort of communications and activities to try and create demand, to highlight the fact that this scheme is available. We also have 21 delivery partners. And these are organizations, some of which are national, some of which are regional. Some are specialist, and some are very, very generic and standardized. But these organizations promote the scheme as well, but they also provide the advice and support that the entrepreneurs receive. So at one end of the spectrum, so we have delivery partners that are, as I said, national and provide a very standardized approach. And they will deal with higher volumes of our customers, and they will get a good quality service. They will get business advice and support, but it is of a standard approach. And so it doesn't matter what industry the entrepreneur is in, it doesn't matter what background they're from, what part of the country they live in, that delivery partner will give them support. But we also have specialist delivery partners, so delivery partners that specialize in supporting young entrepreneurs. And so they will only deal with entrepreneurs under the age of 30. We have delivery partners that specialize in supporting people that come out of the armed forces. So they will simply specialize in supporting people that have left the armed forces and to help them become an entrepreneur. And we have delivery partners that specialize in certain sectors. So, for example, fashion angels that specialize in supporting businesses that are in the fashion industry. So we have a wide range of delivery partners, hopefully providing regional expertise and also specialist expertise. And they promote the scheme as well as Startup Loans promotes the scheme. The applicant comes to us, they enter our portal, our CRM and delivery system, which is called Atlas, and they register their interest. They give us the basic details about them as an individual. No matter which route they arrive, they end up in our portal that all of our delivery partners will use. They go through a very simple credit assessment, and that's simply to determine if they're in a sector that we can't support. So certain industries we can't support, and if there's particularly negative credit history. So we will take more risk than the mainstream banks, but we do have a certain level of risk that we will simply decline at an early stage. And around 20% of applicants are declined at that point. The rest of the applicants, at that point, they are then passed to a business advisor. So once through that first sort of credit assessment, they're passed to a business advisor, and they have a named business advisor with one of those delivery partners. Obviously, if they are looking for specialist support, they'll be given to one of the specialists, or they'll be given to a regional support if there's a regional sort of focus on their business, or they'll be given to one of the national delivery partners. At that point, they're given their business advisor, so a named individual who will then support them through the rest of the journey. And that business advisor will talk to them about their business plan. In some cases, help them build a business plan, talk to them about cash flow and to plan for the future, and effectively make sure that that business is ready to start or to be funded, and get the entrepreneur to a position where they are credit ready, where they are ready to access finance and hopefully grow their business. It's a process that can take days or can take months, and in some cases it's actually taken years. Some of my, it sounds awful to say it's taken years to get a loan, but actually some of my favorite stories are ones where an applicant has come, spoken to a business advisor. The business advisor has talked to them about their business. They've gone away to think about it a little bit more, to develop the business plan, to evolve it. And that relationship has taken many calls and many interactions. And then eventually that business is ready to launch. And the business launches, it gets its funding, and then you hope it is then successful. And I think there's some of my favorite stories about where the business advisor really has helped that entrepreneur develop and get their business ready to launch. So sort of what are we doing? What's the sort of the profile? What's the makeup of our service? So actually these numbers are a little bit out of date, but we're well over 70,000 businesses that have been backed, and the scheme has been going for just over 7 years. As you can see, £576,000 lent, and again, actually these are out of date by a month or two. So it's moving on. The average loan size, so on average we lend about £8,000 over that's over the 7 or 8 years the scheme's been running. But actually more recently the loan size is considerably higher. So this year we're running at about £11,500. So £11,500 is the average loan size at the moment. Early on it was much less. There's a 60-40% split between male and female applicants, and we're quite sort of proud of the impact we're having around diversity and the impact we're having on different communities across the UK. Female business startups are started up at the rate of about 23%. So around 23% of businesses started in the UK are started by a woman. But I think by providing 40% of our loans to female applicants, we feel we're really making an impact in making a change and supporting female entrepreneurs. Similarly, on other areas of diversity, so people of Black, Asian, minority, ethnic background, only about 3% of startups are from a BAME background, but actually 20% of our loans are to people from a BAME background. And again, we feel we're making good inroads and helping communities that are traditionally not able to access funding and traditionally don't start up businesses to the same level as others in the UK. You can also see that there's a good spread across the age demographics. Interestingly, the vast majority of our applicants are in the 31 to 49-year-old bracket. 21% are NEETs. I'm not sure if you know that definition, but NEET is a UK definition. It stands for not in employment or education. So this is sort of 18 to 24-year-olds that aren't in employment or education. So 21% of our loans go to that group, and 36% of our applicants were unemployed before they took the loan. So it's a scheme that we're proud that we're having a social impact as well as a financial impact. I thought I'd just say a few other words about the profile of the people that come to us. And we've done some work recently where we've looked at the personas of the profile of the people that are applying for us. And we've broken it out into 5 different sort of categories, 5 different personas. Really, this is to help us evolve and develop our customer journey. We're conscious that the journey that we have is now nearly 80 years old, and it's quite a standardized journey. And we're starting to think that actually the entrepreneurs that come to us vary in so many different ways, and that probably we can create a more bespoke journey that provides extra support and extra help to those entrepreneurs. So we're in the process of creating some additional variables in our journey, and they've been driven by this work we've been doing, looking at who is it that's applying for our loans. And we've created these 5 personas. And I thought it might be interesting I'll give you the description of the persona, and then a sort of a sentence we use to try and describe what those people are looking for, what they're trying to achieve. So our first persona are what we call our go-getters. And the description we use for these people are that they want to be the next big business in their industry. They have very big ambition. They're looking for recognition. They're looking for fast growth. The second persona are what we call the business builders. These people say that they want to run a successful business. They're starting a business, not necessarily for fast growth, but they're starting a business, they want to run a successful business and for the long term. Much more interested in the sustainability of the business, long-term planning. They're looking for something for the longer term. They tend to be people that have already tried it once and perhaps failed, learnt, and now are doing it with the intent to making it work for the long term. The third persona we support or we identify is what we call the lifestylers. The lifestylers. These are people that want to earn a living doing something that they enjoy. So they want to earn a living doing something they want to enjoy. And they're looking for something that often works around their family, but gives them flexibility. Tends to be in more social activities or retail. The fourth category are the doers. We call them the doers. And these are simply people who want to be their own boss. Tend to people that are currently in employment, and they see the opportunity to start their own business simply to be their own boss. They're looking for independence and they're looking for control. Not necessarily looking to employ people, not necessarily looking for fast growth, but they want that control and independence to be running their own business. And the final category are the opportunists. The opportunists. And they simply want to be in business. In many cases, to get them out of a particular situation that they're in. They're not actually as interested in what business that is. So they're very, very opportunistic in terms of looking for a business that can work for them. They're probably the most interesting category, and often the category that can have the biggest social impact, because they're often seeing the being in business as the way out of a particular circumstance, a particular situation that they're in. So the opportunists are our final category. And the reason for sort of doing this is what we're trying to now do is build the support package to focus on these different personas. And what we're doing now is trying to think about how potentially we divert different applicants into slightly different customer journeys. For example, the go-getters are hugely interested in the mentoring. They get a huge amount from the mentoring because they tend to not be that experienced. They tend to be younger. They tend to be very aspirational. And perhaps they've not made some mistakes along the way that they could have learned from. So they hugely value the mentoring. Whereas the business builders, they tend to feel that the mentoring is telling them what they already know. They actually want that they tend, and again, this is very general, but they tend to feel that they've been through some experience already. They know the fundamentals of running a business. What they want is to get the money quickly, to get the business going, and then come back for the mentoring at a later stage when they've come to the next level of challenge that they'll experience. So the type of mentoring they want is different, and it's a later stage in their journey. And each of these personas has a slightly different need. And so we're starting now to build out and to plan for slightly different journeys for each of these applicants. The final thing I thought I'd just say a few words about, and I'll just come off, I'll stop sharing, is, give me a second, so hopefully that's okay. I'll stop sharing with you. The final thing I thought I'd mention, say a few words about, is the current support that the UK government is giving through the coronavirus. So I'm also looking after the bounce back loans, which are a loan that's provided to any entrepreneur in the UK. It's up to £50,000, and it's done on a very, very fast delivery system. It's delivered through delivery partners. In this case, it's delivered through the high street banks and other financial institutions. And in this case, rather than us providing the funding direct, the British Business Bank provides a guarantee to the lender. And so the lender uses its own funds, but it does that under guarantee from the British Business Bank. So if the business fails and they follow their recovery process, and they can't collect the money, the business has failed, and ultimately there's a loss, that's where the guarantee is called upon, and the bank will claim under that guarantee, and ultimately the British Business Bank or the government takes the loss. Now that's been created to support businesses through this crisis, and it's been done to deliver funds. In the intention is the funds that are delivered within days of application. So we also be looking after that scheme, which is been hugely successful thus far. Well over 1 million businesses have been funded through that scheme, and that's been delivered and been operating now for, I think it's 7 weeks, and that's a particular scheme that's designed predominantly for small businesses, but is, as I say, available to all businesses. Over and above that, the government's also released additional support packages that sit on top of that, really, for larger businesses needing bigger funding, more funding than the 50,000 maximum that the bounce back loan provides. And so I thought I'd just mention that, because clearly at the moment COVID and the coronavirus are hot on everyone's minds, and the British Business Bank, as the government's economic development bank, is the organisation that's delivering much of the funding support to businesses across the UK at the moment. So I thought I'd sort of stop there and take questions. I must confess, I'm not sure if someone is going to ask the questions or whether I should read them off the chat, perhaps. Yeah, okay. So I'll go with the questions on the chat. So I've got a question here. How is the payment behavior of the entrepreneurs? So I presume we're talking about the quality of the book of customers that we have, so the repayment. So up until the last few months, I think actually pretty good. The government sets us a target, an expectation for our ultimately the impairments that we take, so the losses that we take, and this scheme is designed to provide support where the banks cannot fund. So we are clearly taking greater risk. We're taking risk that the mainstream banks will not take or can't take, and obviously startups is a high risk sector. So the government allows up to 30% impairments across the book, and currently we are well within that. So our published numbers sit at around 23-24% of impairments. So that's our sort of level of bad debt that sits across the scheme. More recently, we're not seeing increase in impairments yet, but clearly we are taking action to support customers and suspending their repayments during the current crisis. So I'd expect there to be an uplift as businesses, unfortunately do struggle through the current crisis. But at the moment, we're not seeing a huge upturn because we've suspended payments where customers have asked for support and help.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Richard, pues por esta presentación. Creo que tenemos muchas preguntas de nuestros participantes. Para aquellos que aún no saben cómo hacer las preguntas en la plataforma, a mano derecha, ustedes van a encontrar un signo de interrogación enmarcado en un cuadrito azul. Allí ustedes fácilmente pueden, por favor, diligenciar todas las preguntas que tengan para Richard y su excelente presentación. Mil gracias, Richard. Go ahead con la siguiente pregunta.
Do you want me to keep going then? Yeah. Okay, so another question here. Delivery partners, as you mentioned, they're key in the process. What are the characteristics of these delivery partners and how do you choose them? So delivery partners most of the delivery partners are CDFIs. So they have a community or a social element to them, and they are financial organizations. So they're not banks, they're not regulated lending institutions. They are, most of them, CDFIs, which I believe you have in Colombia as well. So they are designed to support communities in different ways and to provide funding. However, some of our partners are charities, and some of our partners are commercial organizations. So they simply do it for ultimately commercial profit. They're all paid a fixed fee for every loan that is drawn down and for the support that they give. So they are sort of incentivized by providing the support and ultimately by the delivery of the loan. The characteristics of them, I think even the commercial organizations, they also have that sense of community and the sense of purpose, because although we do pay a fee, it's not a huge sort of huge amount. So there's a sense of purpose, and for many of them, it fits alongside other support packages that they already give, other funding streams, or other support that they are paid for by a grant or some sort of external funding. The way we choose them is there is a procurement process. So the UK government we're bound by government procurement process, which means we have a quite strict approach to how we deal with partners, and they have to apply and go through a selection process to ensure that it's fair, and we're being fair in terms of both value for money for the government, but also being fair and allowing as many organisations as possible apply when we open up for additional partners, which we've not done for a while. So the ones we've got on the books at the moment we've had for a while, but hopefully in the coming months we will do another procurement. Can they ask for a second loan? So Jessica asked, can they ask for a second loan? So yes, they can. So they are limited to £25,000, but if someone takes £10,000, they can come back and take another £15,000 at a later date. And obviously the second loan is a much easier, simpler process than the first, because we've already got a relationship and we already have some information. So yes, we have a second loan. We also have a process where they can almost pre-approve their second loans. We call it tranche loans. And what they do there is for a business that knows that they don't need the funding now, but if all goes well, they'll need some funding in 3 months down the line, 6 months later, for example. To keep their risk down and to keep their repayments down in the early days, they can take a smaller amount and then draw a second loan at a later date. So they can either come back for it or pre-agree that second loan. Next question here. What is the regularity of the support the startups have? Is there a limit? After the loan is provided, they have 15 hours. So they can access 15 hours of mentoring after the loan is provided, and that can be taken over 12 months. The regularity is really decided between the entrepreneur and the delivery partner. So the delivery partners do this in different ways, and they offer slightly different services, but at the heart at the center of it, it's 15 hours per customer over a 12-month period. In terms of pre-loan support, so before they get the funding, there is no real limit. As I say, it's quite difficult for the delivery partners to manage, but there's no limit. So some go through very quickly and actually need very little support, whereas others, as I've said, an extreme example is a case that can take more than a year. So that is difficult for the delivery partners to manage, but essentially what we're trying to do is help people understand that there isn't a business opportunity and therefore they won't get the funding. Unfortunately, sometimes that's the case, but I think it's about helping people not take a risk that perhaps isn't going to work, but also helping those businesses to get to a position so that they're ready for the funding and that they're ready to be successful. And I think what is definitely the case is it makes them easier to get the next funding from a mainstream funder once they've been through our process, because they've had to spend time with us really thinking through the business and being able to explain it and talk about it. And I firmly believe that puts them in a much stronger position when they go to a main high street bank or another funder. Another question. Mentorship and support is really important prior and after the loan. Are they successful models for private institutions so they can replicate it or assume it? I think the problem is the cost of it. I think what the government is ultimately paying for, I think, is less cheap money. So I don't think really we're providing cheap money. I think 6% is probably it's probably less than a high street bank would charge a startup, but not hugely so. And yes, our losses are higher than a high street bank, but that's not really, I think, what the government is paying for. I think the government is paying for that pre-loan support. I think what makes it not commercial for a high street bank is actually spending the time to help someone evolve and develop their idea to make it credit ready. I think that's the difficult piece. I think where private institutions could start replicating it is doing more of that in a digital environment, doing it in a more cost-effective environment. And we are looking at what digital tools we can also bring to help the entrepreneurs. But I think fundamentally, even if it's 2 or 3 hours of support per business to help them think through and develop their business plan, that's the piece that makes it difficult commercially. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's the bit I think that makes it difficult. So I'm just looking through the questions, see if there's any more. I can't see any more. Let's go to the bottom. Oh, it sounds like there's another one coming. What are you seeing for the future? So, good question. So, obviously, things have changed because of the current crisis with COVID. What we're seeing for the future is a high level of interest in startups. And we're already starting to see that. Over the last few months, even though we have the bounce back loan scheme I mentioned briefly a moment ago, which is priced at 2.5% with no payments for the first 12 months and a very, very simple application process. So that's a very attractive product for any existing business that's looking for funding. Not open to startups, but as I said, we will fund businesses that are up to 2 years old. So that's an attractive product. And then also we think about the confidence of entrepreneurs. You know, people are obviously nervous and worried about the future. And only now will we coming out of lockdown in the UK. So, you know, businesses have been struggling. So it probably is not an ideal time to start a business. But inquiries, activity, people coming to our website, the traffic to our website is higher than it's ever been. The number of people applying for startup loans is higher than it's been for probably 3 or 4 years. And while in the first few months of the crisis, the number of people actually drawing down was really very low, I think understandably, as people didn't know when they would launch their business or didn't have the confidence to borrow money. Over the last few months, we've definitely seen that change. And I think for a number of reasons, the interest in startups will be significant. Partly because unfortunately some people will have lost their jobs, so perhaps will have more of the opportunist people that see running their own business as the answer to the loss of their job. But I also think there's lots of people that have been at home, working from home, thinking about their lifestyle, the future, the way things are operating, and perhaps thinking about the idea they've always had in the back of their mind, and they're thinking, well, actually, maybe it is the time to try that. Maybe they don't want to carry on traveling the way they've been doing, or perhaps they worry about the future of their industry. But I think we're likely to see a huge amount of interest in startups, partly because of necessity, but also I think some people's personal work-life balance or the personal hopes and dreams for the future have changed. So I think there'll be more startups. And as I say, at the moment, we're seeing large amounts of interest, much more than we have done for the past few years. So while I don't in any way obviously wanted the sort of current circumstances to have come about, I think we're in interesting times for startup loans. And actually, I think what we'll see is some very innovative, interesting, and dynamic businesses coming out of this crisis, and actually creating some change and disruption in the mainstream economy. And while, as I say, it's sad that it's been caused by coronavirus, I think it will be quite interesting to see the businesses that rise from the current crisis. I sense that might be it. Hopefully that feels like an optimistic way to finish. I really do hope I've made sense. I hope you've understood. Apologies, my Spanish is very limited and I'm too nervous to have even tried it, although my youngest, who speaks much better Spanish than I, has been trying to encourage me to try my Spanish, but I wasn't brave enough. But thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Richard, for joining us today and share your experience and learnings. Thanks again. Para todos los demás que nos acompañan el día de hoy, les recordamos que pueden ayudarnos a diligenciar la encuesta del evento del día de hoy en el mismo botón donde podían hacer las preguntas. Allí encuentran la encuesta que pueden diligenciar. Los invitamos a que nos acompañen en esa tarea. También les recordamos que mañana daremos inicio a nuestro evento, a la segunda parte de este evento, a las 8:30 de la mañana. Recordemos que tendremos 2 espacios de conversación, en donde en uno de ellos compartiremos con las instituciones financieras y las entidades de apoyo al emprendimiento que nos acompañaron, y en esos 2 espacios, en esos 2 paneles, ellos nos compartirán todos los aprendizajes que tuvieron en este piloto y los resultados que obtuvimos en este programa. La idea es que entre todos construyamos nuevas herramientas de financiación para los emprendedores. Los esperamos mañana a las 8:30 de la mañana. Muchas gracias. No olviden diligenciar la encuesta del evento y de la charla del día de hoy. Hasta mañana.